Howdy, all of you delicious people. I'm here today to view Power Rangers episodes. So today, of course, we are covering 3 episodes from 3 different seasons. For whatever reason of me just either uh, really liking the monster for some of these episodes or realizing that some of these episodes are to be sports themed, which wasn't done on purpose. It was just like, oh, this is a happy accident because I like this monster. I was like, okay, this episode might be good. So let's kind of see how these all play out. So, without a doubt, we go into the Power Rangers Zeo episode 13, which is to be dubbed Mean Screen. And really, what fascinated me was the visual of this monster, and then I went on to an episode that was actually the best of a Zeo episode that I've seen. Because we have Mean Screen that is to kind of infect a lot of the Power Rangers equipment, like their blasters or their cannons or their Zords, and seemingly make them inoperable. So the Rangers have to kind of strategize and figure out how to take down this monster, or to really just have Alpha and Zordon trying to figure out how to kind of stop their equipment getting hacked into. And so we have, it seems, Atom, who is to go on and take this computer club, and he is to have figured out a way to beat this monster. And it's fairly unusual because normally we would have kind of Billy coming up with a strategy at this point. But it seems that Billy is somehow to have been gone doing some Aquatar stuff. It's a whole, like, they end up talking about a war between two Aquatar species, and I was like, okay, like, whatever, however you can go on and just write a character out of a show. So, I thought that this episode was thrilling. It was great. And so, it also reminded me of those Sentai footages where you would just see Power Rangers or you would just see putties or whoever just beating the crap out of normal people. Man, if people have not got on and seen, like, the Sentai footage version, I'm like, holy crap, like, there's no holds barred for that show. Pretty wild. But I think I've explained that in the past. So, we then go on into a Power Rangers Turbo episode. Kind of a very even episode, but I, of course, was to kind of like this kind of baseball sports theme. And so this, of course, is to be the Curveball episode 39 of Power Rangers Turbo. And so immediately I was thinking that how are they going to go on and adapt this footage, considering this is from Sentai? But then I was like, oh, wait. One, we had some kind of weird thing on Strikeout's chest that I couldn't make out what it was, because it just seemed like gibberish to me. But more than likely, maybe it is actually supposed to mean something for the Sentai footage, and they just kind of put the letters there. I don't know what they did there. But so we also were to have TJ with 2 problems. He is to face against this pitcher that is really bringing the heat or bringing the curve. If you were to ever have gone on and seen the whole Clint Eastwood, like, Trouble with the Curve, you would realize that curveballs are very difficult to hit. And we would also go on to find that TJ is striking out against a monster who is to share the same name. So we have TJ that is to need to figure out both Heat's pitch and, of course, how to take out this monster. And eventually he succeeds at both, and then goes on to win this day as normal Power Rangers would go on and do. So we then go on to the Power Rangers Beast Morpher episode from season 2, episode 21. So this is an episode called Boxed In, and for some unusual reason, they had to go on and come up with a pan-global event, which I'm like, why couldn't you have just called this Olympics? It's basically the exact same. The more and more they talk about it, I'm like, this is basically just the Olympics. And so I was to really be fascinated by the first monster, the Dumbbelltron. But then I realized that the Dumbbelltron, as soon as he was to have like left the episode fairly early on, like my interest just kind of faded as time went on. Yeah, they can go on and give me like these really interesting wrestling moves, or go on and have like almost this kind of boxing match slash wrestling match, because it kind of like boils down into just like one big massive battle for Devin's Zord, which is like the racer Zord in battle mode. I was to go on and even have to like look that up, because I'm like, well, is it gonna have like a specific name, or is it just gonna be called like Racer Zord in battle mode? And that ends up seemingly, for me, when I looked it up, that seemed to be what that Zord was called. Because of course I'm not very familiar with Beast Morpher stuff a lot. Just being brutally honest, because like I've kind of delved in a little bit in there, but not fully committed. And there's certain times where I'm just like, man, am I gonna find like a horrible Beast Morpher episode? Because I'm not as familiar with that season as I am with these other seasons. So with that said, the Beast Morpher episode was decent enough. I would give it an okay. The Power Rangers Turbo episode, I would have to probably give it like a solid okay, if not maybe like a smidge bit better. But yeah, like, but really every single one of these episodes gave me the thumbs up. But yeah, that Beast Morpher episode was to be like riding on that one monster, and like I was to be very visually pleased by it. So with that said, if I didn't state, that episode is to be called Boxed In. So let's box our way into getting into these 3 episodes and really just go in depth about them and talk about what happens. So let's go into that double 5, because I think it's about that time yet again to, of course, go into spoiler time. Spoiler time, it's about that time again to spoil this episodes. So, or these. Let's go into it. So, we come to find that Adam and Tanya, as per usual for every single episode, they have to go on and have the Rangers like be involved in something that they're gonna just do as a one-off thing. And then the following week we're gonna have them do like some other job or some other thing, and something like, man, like I like the fact in kind of the later seasons when they would just have the characters being like one thing and one thing only, as far as like a side thing to do. Because man, when we would consistently have the Rangers that every single episode would have like these odd jobs that it seems like they are to get fired from after every single episode. It's like, oh hey, Rocky is a lifeguard in this episode, and then all of a sudden he's a movie star, or he's a this, or he's a that, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense. Like how every single episode you just have these characters have all these random odd jobs that they can only seem to carry for like a day, and then you just kind of write them in as them doing something else the following episode. But anyways, like at some point you're gonna run out of odd jobs for these characters to do, and I kind of liked when we would have like the nick of time odd job thing, or We would eventually have like Buzz Blast, even though that was a goofy thing. Still, at least we would have our characters that like would have like one like consistent side job, or they would be in school. Anyways, so we have Adam and Tanya in this computer club at Angel Grove High. So we have Raymond, who is to help out Adam and Tanya get online, and we have Adam who's like, "Oh my god, like this is amazing!" And so they're so grateful that they went into this computer lab to get ahead of the technological curve, as we're gonna try to curve our way into what is going on next. So we come to find that Tanya is to see this smiling face upon the screen is to be so tempted to click on it, and Raymond's like, "Oh no, like I don't think you should go on and click on that, but it's far too late." Tanya goes on and clicks on this visual because it's yellow and she's the Yellow Ranger, so might as well click on it, right? So we come to find that this image is to have a virus within it, and we then have Raymond like scrambling upon this computer, trying, or this laptop, trying to desperately figure out a way to beat this virus because he has 45 seconds before this virus is to take hold, and we have a timer that's going on and everything. So Raymond, luckily within those mere seconds, is to come up with a computer way to beat this virus. And it's like, whew, like man, we saved the world yet again from a computer virus. So we have Mondo that says like, man, the Rangers are afraid of just a little virus, and Queen Machina is to notice that they are like scrambling in front of a less than uh, uh, tech object, and she just feels saddened by that. So we go on to have Sprocket, who is to steal Clank's idea, and Clank is kind of kicking himself for the fact that Sprocket was to say something before he did, and so Sprocket is to have the idea about unleashing a computer virus themselves. Yeah, blah, 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 let's get the computer virus. Blah, blah. So Mondo is to tell Sprocket, it's like, yeah, that's a really good idea, Sprocket, as Clank is just kind of like, like he took my idea. So Mondo is to unleash out Mean Screen, and so Adam is to find a martial arts chat room, desperately trying to figure out if there's a new kata out there, because it seems that everybody is just so addicted in this show to figuring out a new kata, as Billy at one point would try to get trained by Tommy on how to do a new kata, and it seems that Tanya is going to have to leave this computer club to try and do the same thing. So we all of a sudden, if Tanya is to leave, we then have both Kat and Rocky that enter the computer club, and so Adam is telling like Rocky, like, "Oh my god, Rocky, yeah, you have to come over here. Like, I'm in a martial arts chat room." And Rocky's like, "Oh wow, cool." And so we're really just jazzed about this whole computer deal. So we then find both Mean Screen. What if we had a monster called Mainstream? Or God, what would be the streamer? Oh my God, he's Netflix. Ah! Anyways, so we have the Mean Screen and Clank making their way to this computer center, and so Clank has Mean Screen connect to a computer to try and get intel on the Power Rangers, and so they connect in, and we start to have Mean Screen getting information on the Power Ranger Zords, on their certain bits of equipment, and so it's like, all right, like we're gonna easily just beat these clowns. So we all of a sudden have also like certain technological items starting to backfire. Like an ATM is starting to spit out money. A store's motion door, when you would go into like a certain like store or whichever, you have these kind of sliding doors coming in and out. Uh, we would have some guy who is trying to get through one of these doors to kind of have the door like on him. We had this barrier sign that was continuously going up and down. If of course you would ever go into a place where there'd be this barrier there, and there'd be this guy who was kind of at his post going on and needing like certain identification, or because it's like a kind of a private area, or maybe it's to be like a parking uh, garage where you'd have to go on and kind of get certain bits of information to let somebody enter and leave. So we all of a sudden have Bulk and Skull on their motorcycle, and they get a call from Stone via this radio. And Stone is mentioning about that there is a ton of traffic situations, and while they're kind of hearing Stone talking, we have Bulk and Skull, who of course are fighting over the talk piece of this radio, so that way we have Skull that is to do this kind of funny limerick answer, as we have Skull who finally wants to kind of answer this radio, as it seems that Bulk has kind of done it far more than enough. So we have Skull like, hey, 10-4, good buddy. we got the pigs in the blanket, and the crows are crowing, and like he's going into all this like rambling nonsense. So we have them realize that they need to open this secret weapon-like case, and that is to be of these white gloves and these whistles. And so like, all right, like a Bulk and Skull are to whip out this secret weapon. So they, after that, go on to get onto the motorcycle and drive off. So Adam is to find that in this computer lab, he is to realize that this computer is to have another computer virus, and Raymond is like scrambling for Adam to just kind of unplug the computer, so that way the virus won't infect other computers. So Adam is like scrambling underneath tables, unplugging this computer, giving us a really interesting action sequence here. So we all of a sudden have Adam's communicator that goes off, and so we of course have the Rangers that tell Raymond, it's like, well, I'm sorry, like, but we have to leave. And Raymond's like, well, that's okay, I'm gonna take this floppy disk and insert a antivirus to kind of counteract the problems that are kind of going on with these computers. So to save all of them, desperately saving all the computers. So we have Kat that answers the call on the watch. So we have Zordon that talks about Mean Screen, and that he's infecting every computer in Angel Grove, and that he must be stopped. So we have the Power Rangers morph to face off against Cogs instead of actually Mean Screen. I guess that was a computer glitch on the Ranger side of things. And we have Rocky that demands that the Cogs give it up. And so the Cogs are just like, well, okay. And so all of them just go onto a table together, just start eating lunch. It's like, well, yeah, like, it's a good thing that we just had this really calm, nice time. No. Man, wouldn't that have been great? We have the Cogs that are like, Rocky, you're stupid. And then Rocky's like, well, hey, I tried. So we have the cogs that are having this kind of like chain link kind of thing between them where they're kind of using their hands to like connect to one another. And I thought I was like, okay, this is kind of interesting how we have like the cogs that are kind of in unison trying to like attack together. And so we go on to have Adam that fights with one hand tied behind his back. Man, if he could have only just had one leg tied behind his back, and also if he only could have like had like one eye. How absurd! Like I get that like we need to try to do something interesting as far as the fight of the cogs, but like doing the whole one hand tied behind your back thing is a little goofy. And then he's like, "Well, no, I'm not going to waste this hand," and they pow. So we go on to have Tommy and Tanya, who, of course, we don't see Tommy whatsoever throughout this whole entire episode. Because I'm like, man, do we always have to just figure out a way to write, like, every single, like, person out of the episode? Like, man, it's got to be really taxing to, in every episode, come up with some way of, like, oh, no, we can't use this character. Oh, no, we can't use that character. And so they always have to kind of write them out, it seems, or figure out a way to only show them doing this or that for the show. And like you would think at some point, like the Power Rangers would just be like, "Dude, we're paying you enough money. Like you're gonna be in every episode. Like we only have X number of episodes." But I get it. Like give people the break that they need because of course, it's supposedly like a 16-hour day, and certain scenes take way longer than they should to try to get done. So we have Tommy and Tanya that get to the computer center as like Kat is to cry out that the uh, the Rangers need to also go on and get there anyways. So we have Tommy and Tanya that are there, and we find that Mean Screen and Clank are going to get the drop on the both of them, and so we have Tommy and Tanya that are talking about this computer center, and we see this TV screen, and I was like, man, this is a really cool effect that they do here to have Mean Screen, who is to not only like zap these Rangers with this electricity, but then he goes on and like jumps through the screen, and it's to kind of like perfectly match it. And then he like arrives and he's like, aha! I'm like, wow, what an amazing effect that was. And it also kind of reminds me of the horror movie Shocker, if you guys were ever to have seen that movie. Because we have the main villain who is to be this kind of TV repairman, and it's really cool. So we go on to have Adam, Rocky, and Kat that come in after Mean Screen is really given the boots to both Tommy and Tanya. We have them trying to use their Zeo laser pistols, and because we'd have the Rangers that were fighting the Cogs easily defeat them, and the Cogs just kind of teleport out of there because like they're obviously fighting a losing fight. So we have Mean Screen who's going to get attacked with these Zeo laser pistols, and so he immediately deflects them all by using his screensaver. And we also are to realize that this guy is to just not get impacted whatsoever. So we have the like kind of boosted laser pistols, and all the Rangers like get those out and try to blast Mean Screen to have it be having no effect whatsoever. And so the power chamber, we have Alpha that is realizing that Mean screen is consistently infecting their systems, where Alpha is trying to fix one, all of a sudden another problem crops up elsewhere, and so on, and so on. So, Alpha doesn't know how they're going to be able to survive this fight and also keep their technology from not suffering from being infected by Mean Screen. And so we have Mean Screen that is to tell the Rangers that everything that they're trying to do is hopeless, and that even their Zords can't help them out in this situation. So all the Rangers realize that there's only one thing that they can do, and that is to just run at this point. It's the real Ghostbusters strategy of things, because of course, whenever the real Ghostbusters would realize that their proton packs would not work, they're like, well, like, there's only one thing left to do, and we just see them all running. So we have Mean Screen that's like, well, I hate to just kind of delete and run. And then he realizes that the Power Rangers are taking that strategy and running off themselves, and he's like, well, wait a minute. So he starts to chase after the Rangers. We have this kind of very small location where the Mean Screen is to try to track them down and try to attack them more, going on to then have him create within his computer screen system like this kind of old-fashioned bomb that he tosses, and the Rangers explode from out of this window and go flying. So the Rangers use the Zeo Blaster, hoping that'll work. And so the Zeo Blaster is to basically be like this huge mashup of all the weapons that they've accumulated to combine together as this big, massive attack, like weapon. And they're like, well, hopefully this works. And fingers crossed. So we have the attack fail miserably. So Tommy calls Zordon, and Zordon and Alpha are trying to work to stop this infection. And so Zordon is to tell Tommy, it's like, well, hey, like, we're gonna have you take the Defender wheel, because it seems that the Defender wheel is to be an item that we've kind of like made sure isn't infected. So try to use this against this threat. So the Defender wheel arrives. Tommy goes into it and is to try and take out Mean Screen. Mean Screen is like, oh no, I'm going to go on and infect this thing too. And by the time that he tries to accomplish that, Tommy then does the attack and is to take down Mean Screen, but it seems that Mean Screen is to have a copy, so yeah, like, really that does nothing. So we have Mondo that is very pleased with this monster, and so he is to send Clank out to, of course, have the Make My Monster Grow moment, where we have Clank who is to kind of toss Orbis and make Mean Screen much more bigger. So again, we have Tommy that calls up Zordon, and it seems that the Megazord isn't working or is incapacitated at this time. So Adam leaves the fight because he's like, you know what, I'm freaking done with this, Rangers. Like, I'm retiring as a Power Ranger right now because we're going to lose this fight. And the Rangers are like, no, Adam, no. Don't do it. No. We have Adam that is to come up with a plan, and so he needs to leave to be able to do so. So we come to find that Adam is to make his way to Raymond, who is to come up with an antivirus for Adam to use to go into the Power Ranger equipment and kind of do a kind of clear-all to have the Rangers be able to reuse this equipment. So Adam is to say, it's like, well, hey, you're like a tech guy, right, Raymond? And Raymond's like, well, yeah. And so it's like, well, hey, like, what do you have to go against this virus? And so Raymond is like, well, luckily I was coming up with an antivirus. And so Adam's like, well, can I use that? And Raymond's like, sure. So we have Adam that goes on to rush teleport to the power chamber, while all the Rangers are, of course, like, oh my god, I hope Adam's okay. Yeah, I hope. Maybe he just needed to take a dump. I don't know. Maybe that's why he left. He needed to go to the power chamber to take a number power too. So we have Adam that goes to the power chamber and is to give Alpha the antivirus. And so Alpha's putting it in and it's working, and so they can use all their equipment. So we then have the Power Rangers that Megazorded up, that Zeo Megazord. So we have Alpha that realizes that a monster with the name Mean Screen, maybe the weakness of this monster should be its screen itself. Wow, like what a master stroke of writing there. Yeah, attack the screen! But they don't really go on and have Alpha like tell the Rangers that. It just feels like Alpha is just telling Zordon, and it's really just like, okay, like, why didn't Alpha just like communicate with the Rangers, tell them like, hey, attack that screen, attack that screen deal? It feels like the Rangers figure that out regardless. So we have Adam and Rocky that are to switch up the Zeo helmets, because we always just have to do that through every one of these episodes that I've reviewed of Power Ranger Zeo. So Adam uses his Ram helmet, and then we of course have Rocky, who's had this kind of Egyptian like helmet, which is kind of rather cool, and goes on to like does this blast, and we have the Mean screen that ends up getting like shattered, and so we then have to whip out the saber to kill off Mean Screen, and so we transition to Bulk and Skull that couldn't understand where exactly Stone wanted them to go. There were several different addresses that were really rather confusing to them. So we all of a sudden have Stone appear, and Stone is livid because he was knee deep in a bunch of traffic problems that he had to go on and get like airlifted out. And so we then have Stone, who is to want to take away both Bulk and Skull's whistle and white gloves, and have both Bulk and Skull cry about it. So Zordon is to thank Adam for his quick thinking and his strong muscles and his courageous efforts to become a Power Ranger just every single day, right? So Adam is to tell it's like, well, luckily just Raymond had that device in time, and that normally whenever they would have like a tech pickle, Billy would always try to get them out of that. And we then have Billy that is like, oh, like someone was to say my name. And like, oh wow, Billy's here, because we almost forgot about him, sadly enough, because he's to be in like every one of these episodes, but he's just gone for this episode. Maybe this is the one episode where Billy had gotten ill and was to kind of be written off. Or maybe he just wanted time off, because man, being there every day, would probably want me to probably take like a week off. Because how many times have all the other Rangers gone on and taken time off? So we have Billy that is talking about this war that was waging on Aquitar, and he was to try to give a peace treaty between both of these species. And so it's like, okay, great, thumbs up. Like, so, like, Billy, you're going to be here next week, right? And Billy is like, well, of course I will be. So we have Mondo and Queen Machina that are like, well, like, we don't want Billy to come back. And we also are going to plan this big surprise for when Billy returns. And that's kind of how we end the episode. So going on into the next episode, the Power Rangers Turbo episode, The Curveball, we have at this baseball field, TJ is to throw an out. I don't know if he was a shortstop or he was a second baseman, but he goes on and tosses this ball to the first baseman and gets the out. When TJ is to try to leave off the field, we have this player on the opposite side who's like, hey man, like the score is tied 3-3. And TJ's like, oh, okay, well, great, who cares? Like, this isn't the key part of the episode there, buddy. Like, come on. So, we have TJ, who I guess is like a mentor to all these other players, and we had this one teammate who's like, well, hey, TJ, what bat do I use? And so it's either wood or aluminum. I'm like, well, obviously aluminum, because it's to have more impact. But I don't get why we're going in between two different bats here. So just randomly pick one and swing away. Just hit for the fences. So even if it doesn't make sense, just swing away, Meryl. Swing away. You guys remember the Mel Gibson movie Signs? So we have the guy that goes up to the plate, and TJ's like, well, hey, man, like, adjust your swing, kind of choke up on the bat. So we have TJ that gets a call from Alpha, and they have to kind of leave the game to be able to save the day here. So we have the team that TJ's in. It's like, well, hey, you're half of our roster, and that's obvious because TJ goes up to bat like a million times in certain parts of this episode. And so I'm just like, well, like, what kind of rules do they have via this game? That is kind of just very wonky. And plus, also, we have TJ who is to go on and fight the same team like every single time that he is to play these games. Like, as if like Angel Grove has very few teams in this city. So, if I haven't stated that already. So, TJ and Carlos find out the Rangers are being attacked by Piranhatrons and Rygog, and so the Rangers, both TJ and Carlos, are going into a big, huge shift, and they're going to take a huge shift and morph into their Ranger personas. So we have the Rangers trying to take on the Piranhatrons and Rygog. We even have Stormblaster that is trying to mix it up with him slamming this door on one of the Piranhatrons as he's trying to get into the car to try and take over this Jeep. Make it eval, maybe. So we have all the Rangers that are trying to go on and attack all these Piranhatrons and Rygog. And so we go on to have Rygog and the Piranhatrons just kind of disappear. I'm like, what was the point of this attack? You have the Rangers that are kind of fighting this off, and like, I want like a definitive like reasoning for like wipe out something, like destroy Rygog for once or something like that, because we would again have Divatox that has so many generals anyways. But also Rygog is a really cool image. And I was just very baffled or confused why he didn't go on and was like wasn't involved in like in space, because Elgar was. Like, I get it that Elgar might have been the comic relief, but so they could have gone with something else there. They could have done something else. So we go back to TJ and Carlos, like, scrambling to get back to the game. And TJ is to crank a home run, and we all of a sudden have this ball that plops right in front of this new player that this other team is to have. And so they stop the whole game, and so we have this one player who is to have been the pitcher is to go on and have a relief pitcher called Heat. And so TJ is to want to shake the hand of this guy, and we have Heat that is to take the baseball and is to put it in TJ's hand to be like, yeah, here you go, here's your baseball. So TJ goes on to try and if he is not already like hit a home run, we then have him go back onto the mound to face off against Heat, who has this seemingly unbeatable curveball. So TJ, of course, is a strikeout, and so he goes to the juice bar with this batting strategy or batting techniques book. It's telling the rest of the Rangers that he's going to occupy his time in the batting cage to figure out how to go on and take down Heat in his curveball of doom. So we have all of a sudden the players from the other side of that team make their way to the juice bar, because I guess we never seen these guys before, but we'll see them now. And they start laughing at TJ like, hey, you can't get that pitch, right? You can't go on, and you can't, like, defeat Heat, so, you must delete. I don't know, I was going with a random weird rhyming scenario there. So, we have the other team players laughing it off. So, TJ's like, yeah, I can't figure out that pitch. I don't know what it is. So, we then have Bulk and Skull, who are working as these groundkeepers at this baseball field, because Bulk and Skull just has weird, odd jobs. And so we have this head groundskeeper that is telling the guys, like, well, yeah, like, you better make those white stripes white. And so we have Bulk and Skull that are trying to whip out this chalk to go into this machine, and it ends up just kind of spraying them in the face. They hit the machine. They're very upset. So we have TJ that gets up to bat again against this same team. He is sweaty, knees deep in mom spaghetti, and I don't remember the Eminem words. So, of the Lose Yourself song. It's been a while. Anyways, so, we have, of course, DJ that strikes out again. What a coinkydink. So, we go on to have the like we can't afford another team, so this is the only thing we got. But then also we have Divatox, who is to use her like scope like thing to be in this cooler system, and so she is to realize that TJ is to have striked out, and Porto is to go on and bring her a monster that is to share that same name, but then again has this kind of weird, goofy lettering that is to be on his chest. Then I'm like, okay, what was that all about? So TJ and Carlos wants to know the technique to hit Heat's pitch, but Heat, of course, would refuse, because, like, no, man, like, I've been working a really long time on this pitch to perfect it, and, like, I don't want to go on and just give it away to guys like you, and who are to eventually be Power Rangers, and how would I know? So TJ again gets a call from Alpha about strikeout. So we have the Rangers that are to start to whip out these storm blades, or the turbo blades, and so to see if they can go on and try to hit off of strikeout. And wouldn't you think, the Rangers go on and miserably fail, as Justin tries first and he loses. Then all the rest of the Rangers end up getting taken out afterwards. So TJ is to actually go on and hit like a softball delivered by strikeout, but then he goes on to attack and destroy all the other Rangers. So we have, after that, it seems that the strikeout monster is to leave, because, like, okay, like, I ran out of balls, this must be the 7th inning stretch, I'm gonna get out of here. So we have TJ and and Carlos realized that, like, man, like, we can't win against Strikeout and we can't win against Heat. What are they gonna do? So we have them biking off, and so Heat is like, like suckers. So we come to find TJ that is continuing to bike now alone, and so Heat is to kind of bike right next to him and just be like, hey man, want to race? And TJ's like, no. And so Heat's like, well, hey, I'll race you. So we have Heat that doesn't realize where he's going, and he is to plummet into falling off this cliff. And so TJ now has to go on and rescue this jerk. And we have Heat that is to tell TJ, it's like, well, hey, like, I owe you one. And TJ's like, you owe me nothing. So we have after that where Heat ends up calling TJ over now at this baseball field, and it's to tell him the secret of his pitch, but he's only going to go on and tell TJ this because he doesn't want everybody knowing. Or we would, of course, have Heat, who is to have everybody kind of figure out this this way to take off this this ball. So we have Carlos that goes off to get a call from Alpha about Strikeout coming back. So we have Carlos that goes on to leave to then have TJ who starts swinging at Heat's ball. So we then have TJ that runs off to fight against Strikeout, and we then have TJ who, of course, is more confident. He's holding this bat behind his helmet. So we have this power bat. That's what I'm going on and calling it, because you just have to fuse the word power in front of everything. Even though more than likely you'd probably have to state like whatever like season it is. It's like, is it the Astro bat? Is it the Chrono bat? Is it the Beast X bat? Is it the whatever goofy other name that they have to call all their equipment? Because it can't just be like a normal common word. You have to have all these syllables to make it sound different than anything that they've invented in the past. But it just has to go on and make us realize that they can't go on and kind of slim down names of things. That's the real problem there. So we have the Rangers that they're realizing that TJ seems to be more confident, that he's going to go on and like, go and hit a homer, kid. Because if you got on and seen the Power Rangers Time Force episode, and we have Wes, who is to have that ball, and he tosses it to the kid, and he's like, hit a homer, kid. And I would go on and kind of laugh about that. Now thinking about it, because I would talk like that. So we have TJ that takes this ball and cranks it into outer space, because this is basically like Superman going on and smacking away this ball, and so it like goes into Earth's atmosphere. So we have Divatox that's like, oh my god, like Strikeout is losing now, like we need to go on and fire up those torpedoes. So TJ, of course, is a call for the Megazord, as Strikeout is in to be his own relief pitcher. So we have the Megazord that quickly does this spin attack to wipe out Strikeout, and so we then have Elgar and Rygog. They're having all these baseball hats and balls upon their hands. And we have Divatox that is like, well, hey, I don't want to see a single solitary baseball item whatsoever. And so Elgar and Rygog are scrambling to get all this baseball equipment away. And they say, like, well, yeah, like, we hate baseball also. So we then, by the end of this episode, is to have another baseball game between the same two teams. And so we have TJ who is trying to again guide this player out onto the mound, and he's so like the guy's like, "What should I do?" And TJ's like, "Just try your best, and believe in yourself, and if all else fails, like pat yourself on the back 3 times." So we have the batter that goes up there, and we have Heat that realizes that like this guy is gonna struggle, and so he just stops everything and is to rush the mound and is to try and teach the guy how to hit the ball. And we're like, what? Like, I thought he was only going to teach the one guy, but then all of a sudden he is like teaching everybody. And so we then have TJ that smiles, and they end the episode that way. So we then go into the Power Rangers Beast Morpher episode, which is boxed in. So in the beginning of this, we are to have the Rangers find out at the grid battle force that there is to seemingly be an event going on called the Pan Global event, because of course Channel 10 news is covering it, and we have Zoe who's to have her mother be this anchor, and so she states, it's like, oh my god, like yeah, like this pan global thing is going on, but I don't know what event to really go to. And so they start rattling off all these events, and so Nate is excited about the high jump, and Steele is excited about the basketball, and we have Ravi that wants to go to the weightlifting events. Does any of these events sound familiar? Because they sound like Olympic events, as I've gone on and stated that, but still, it just bugs the crap out of me. So I'm kind of curious if ever they were to try to reinvent this whole event somewhere else, or maybe they're like recycling it from other seasons. Where like, oh yeah, they came up with this like pan global event. That sounds like a good thing to steal for an episode. So we have Ravi that wants to go into this weightlifting, and he also wants to enter himself because he has the power to be very strong anyways. So we have Shaw that instead of having the Rangers doing any of these events, she wants them to instead to make sure that the towers are secure, to try and prevent monsters from coming in stealing Morpher X, which of course is to be like the juice of the gasoline to get both Ranger side and Monster side to kind of keep them going. So we, if I haven't stated that at some point already, because I hadn't, so because I hadn't really known what the heck Morpher X really was. I was like, what is Morpher X? Why is Morpher X? When is Morpher X? So we have Sean that immediately states as well, like, obviously we're all gonna have to work together and kind of have these like whole tower things just kind of quickly be taken care of, so that we can all go to these events. And Robbie's just like, I don't think so. So Robbie instead is to say that they should probably pick names out of a hat, and certain people should try to get out of doing these tower security things to instead go to these events and enjoy their time for once. Because, of course, these characters don't probably have lives beyond being Power Rangers. So they start to pick names out of a hat, and so Zoe, Devin, and Nate are to have gone on to need to protect these towers. And Robbie's like, yes! So he leaves with Steele, and both of them go on to, of course, try and go to this powerlifting, weightlifting event. So we have Robo, Blaze, and Roxy that are talking about how they loathe and hate that this event has gone on to have so much focus. So we then have Robo Blaze that's like, well, like, focus means distraction. And so we're having Blaze and Roxy think that they can take full advantage of this situation. And we have Robo Roxy that's like, well, yeah, like we can definitely hope that after Evox comes back from being the mayor, if that is to be a spoiler for anybody, and my apologies, but random Beast Morpher episode. So she is hoping that she'll go on and have defeated Rangers at Evox's feet when he comes back. So we have Zoe, Nate, and Devin make their way to this tower, and they notice a monster, of course, is to be there, and so they're like, okay, we have to take this monster down. So Zoe immediately calls for Ravi and Steel for help. And they're like, really? Like, come on. Like, all right. Like, we'll get there. Even though, like, we're now to have needed to go on and completely miss this whole event. And because the Rangers, I guess, aren't really trying enough to beat this one monster. So we have Dumbbelltron that is to claim that he's a heavy hitter, and Devin's like, well, I think you're more of a dead weight. So we have the Rangers morph, and they get out their transport sabers, and Dumbbelltron throws out some like weighted bombs, and we then have Dumbbelltron who's take this barbell that has quite a bit of weight on it and tosses it onto the Rangers, and they kind of fall back, and they now can't lift this weight within the three of the Rangers together. But if you have two other Rangers, they can go on and kind of easily lift up this this bit of weight. So Ravi and Steel arrive to then have Ravi, who starts fighting against Dumbbelltron, and we have Steel that is trying to lift this weight, but he can't. So we have Ravi that is, interestingly enough, while fighting the Dumbbelltron, he's using all these like wrestling moves, these like pro wrestling moves. We have him at first using this power bomb, and he ends up using this attack known in the wrestling world as the big swing. We would have professionally a WWE wrestler that was, or a former WWE wrestler that was to be called Cesaro, that is to now be an AEW or Ring of Honor as Claudio. He goes on to, of course, use this big swing move. And that would be the one that I would be like, okay, like that's the only guy that I know uses that move, but it's called the big swing. So we have Ravi that blasts this Dumbbelltron with the Beast X cannon and destroys him, and so now both Ravi and Steel are to lift the weights from off of the Rangers. And so Devin calls for crews, and he's like, okay, like we need to go on to the next tower. And Ravi is just very upset that he missed the games. And he is also to be like upset that it's like, well, did you guys even lift, bro? Did you guys even try that hard to try and take down this monster? Or did you just immediately call me so that way you guys can like kind of get out of doing some work? And we have Devin that's like, well, hey, like I'm sorry that you don't care enough to try and protect these towers because it's an everyday thing for you, and maybe you're just getting burnt out on it. So it's like, I'm sorry you're not wanting to keep the world safe enough, Ravi. So back at the bid the grid battle force, we have Shaw that is on high red alert, as if this is like Star Trek or something. Red alert! Engage! So we have Devin that ends up getting a call from Shaw stating that there's a Gigadrone out there, because there's always a Gigadrone out there. And so Blaze and Roxy are to take off to infect this building. And so Devin is to be fighting off an Alpha drone. We had Shaw that states that it was a Gigadrone, but then it's really an Alpha drone. So both Devin and this Alpha drone go on to be teleported into this huge, massive boxing ring. So we have Devin that is to tell Shaw what had just happened. And so the rest of the Rangers are watching on as this boxing match is to unfold. in front of this big, massive screen outside. So Rangers try to break in the arena, but Robbie uses gorilla strength, and it's not going to work. So the Rangers figure out that they're like, okay, how about we use the Striker Megazord and see if that can kind of make our way into this building. And we all of a sudden have two drones that appear to fight Devin in his Racer Megazord battle mode thing, or his Racer Zord battle mode. So we go and have Devin, and it's like, oh my god, like this is not going to work. So we have the Striker Megazord that uses its rapid blast as well as kind of using its strength, and they miserably fail. So we have the beta drone that comes in and loses his dumbbell and gets stunned, and so he tags in as if this is now like a handicapped tag team match. If you guys know wrestling whatsoever, we of course have now a 2-on-1 situation for Devin. So we all of a sudden have the Dema drone that comes in and starts dancing and is kind of doing its Muhammad Ali. And so we have Devin that's like, seriously, like, what a joke. So, like, I kind of like how he goes on and is to kind of talk about this, talk like smack, like, yeah, what a piece of shit. Like, so we have all of a sudden the Zords, considering it's the numbers game, they just start double teaming, and there's no ref to kind of pull off these monsters away from Devin to kind of even things up. So then I'm like, well, why even go on and have this match legitimately? Why not just have all the drones come in and just start beating up on Devin? Because that's what it should just come out to be anyways. So we have the Rangers notice that a Gigadrone is being waited upon to go into the arena, and so the Rangers decide to use this cable strike to kind of grapple their way onto this drone, hoping that if the drone goes, they will too, but instead they get kind of spitted out of this arena, and they're like, man, like, all right, like, I guess we just can't figure out how to get into this arena. So all of a sudden the Tronics arrive, and so Zoe and Ravi go into Beast X Morpher mode. And so Ravi does his Gorilla Slam, and Zoe is to use her Beast X Morpher cannon. And Steel does a Beast Slash with his saber. So Nate is to plan on putting together an Ultra Zord, hoping that it'll work with the Beast X King the Beast X King Zord. So while we of course have the Delta drone that is facing off against the Racer Zord, and is now to have the Racer Zord that is tied to these ropes, and so Nate is to figure out how to do the Ultra Zord, and so they all run off to the races. And so we have the Racer Zord that takes out both drones. Luckily, he has this kind of weird rope attack, and it wipes out both of the drones. So while we have the Beast X King Ultra Zord that gets into the building and is to kind of have all the monsters kind of flying out, as well as Devin. So the Ultra Zord is open the building, and so we come to find out that the building was a Robotnik thing, was to be a monsterish thing the whole entire time. They didn't realize that until now. So we all of a sudden have the commentator that is actually like one of them. And so I was like, okay, cool. And so the Rangers with their Zords go on to destroy quite a bit of these drones, to leave that the commentator is the only one really left. So we have the Ultra Zord that throws Devon, and then the Ultra Zord goes into the Ultra Strike, which is to be kind of like this final attack move. So Steel wants the new Zord to be named after him, and we have Nate that's like, no. Like, this long stretch of a ridiculous name is going to have to be good enough, and they can't just call it Ultra Zord and just call it a day. So we have the Rangers that are to realize after the fact that if they finally go on and if they share the workload, they can finally go on and at least see one of these karate tournaments. And we have the Rangers that are kind of okaying that. We then find it that they are to share the workload and go off to this karate tournament. And by the time that they actually get into the karate tournament, this karate tournament is to not be shown because they're going to this event and credits roll. So, with that said, I'm going to go on and try to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Bye, everybody. Let me know in the comments below how you felt about these episodes. Whether you liked them, you hated them, you felt indifferent about them, because at the end of the day, comments are always great. But with that said, I'm going to go on and try to get out of here so I can try to do another video for today. I apologize for how less and less often I am to do videos, but there's a lot of times where I just get kind of occupied or kind of don't realize how much time I've spent on other things. And then I realize, like, oh crap, I have to put out a video for today. And then I have to kind of like scramble to get thumbnails together or try to come up with images for certain things. And it takes way longer than it should. Kind of like how this review takes way longer than it should. So with that said, I'm going to get out of here. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye, everybody.